What's going on? Welcome to the this is a picture show cinema based edition of Special Sessions Live. It's just an extension of my show. Uh, and we're going to cover, I'm going to have different guests here and there, but for the most part, it's going to be me and my friend Dave Boback. We're big cinephiles. We actually met in film school, and we pretty much dropped out of film school around the same time. So before I get started, I'm going to do some promo for some friends. First things first, Black Forge Coffee Shop, where I normally do Special Sessions Live, is doing a tour around the country for Save Our Stages. They are also doing a raffle where you can win prizes from bands such as Zayo, Code Orange. There's, I think it's $5 a ticket, and you could win coffee and some merch or whatever. That's blackforgecoffee.com. Also, my good friend Brian and Evan and Justin and all of them, they just put out a record, Normal Creatures. You could check out their site, check out their stuff. Their album's available. I believe they even did a vinyl pressing. That's at normalcreatures.net. So without further ado, let's get Dave on here and start the show. It's fucking Saturday morning for real. And the work wet. Yo,
what's
dude!
up? What's going on?
Dude, there you go. Dude, look at that beard.
It's too early, man. It's too early.
That beard is the whitest thing you've ever done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's cool though. I like it. I dig it. It's
Appreciate it.
very fitting for the times. Let's say hi to Nate.
What's up,
We
Nate?
got the Bowbacks on here.
Is he on? Yeah, he is on.
Yeah. So this week is our first endeavor into the cinematic extension of Special Sessions Live, which is the picture show. So it's whatever. We're all fucking bored. We have nothing going on. And
Yes.
I'll be perfectly honest. I watched some YouTube videos the other day of different people who cover movies.
Mhm.
And like YouTube influencers or whatever you want to call them, people who make videos, like they're really, really cool. And some of them, like you could tell they have their beats. But there's this odd thing that they all do with tons of editing. And it's like, that gets on my nerves. But I get it. You want to make a good product, whatever.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
this is not edited. This is just babbling, just like any of my other shows.
Organic.
It's organic.
Yeah.
It's pronounced organic.
Organic.
Organic. But regardless, today we're covering William Peter Blatty's Exorcist 3.
Hell yeah.
Probably, and we both know this is because it's, for us, the easiest episode to get started with, the easiest movie to cover, because it's one of those movies that it's beyond cult classic in that it's always been this, like, I don't want to say like unfinished film, but it's definitely had so much incredible potential, and there were so many amazing things about it. And then there was always a history of issues, which we're not going to cover because I really don't care. Go Shout Factory, buy the DVD.
Yes, everything you need to know about what happened with Exorcist 3 and how it got fucked up over time is all on that.
It's
that
all on that
Blu-ray.
DVD, so there would be no particular reason for us to get into it, and I really don't care.
Yeah, I
Try
don't
to
care
get some
either.
fun, man.
Yeah.
So I think also we kind of plotted this out earlier. Also, I'm going to take these glasses off because this glare is killing me. Anyways, and I didn't smoke this morning. I've been too busy. I'm motivated today. You see these eyes? These are eyes of a motivated dude on a
Very
Saturday
motivated.
morning. And
Very
that's
motivated.
that'll change. That'll change. I'll burn
I
out.
bet. Hey, it happens to the best of us. It's Saturday. Fuck it.
Fuck it. And I have a 3-day weekend. So,
Fuck
but
yeah.
really what prompted us to pick this one too is because our favorite episode of Joe Bob's last drive-in show, the Shutter removed the Exorcist 3 episode, which has been pretty much that's something we put on when you don't know what you want to watch. You just want to hear people talking about it. And it's
Yeah.
not even the movie as much. Like I barely pay attention. Like I'll take bathroom breaks during the movie and then come back. I mean, not
Yeah.
long that long of a bathroom break, but sometimes depending on the day.
Yes.
Um, but you know, we enjoyed his commentaries on that. They were really funny. So that's also what prompted it because it's fresh in our minds that it's not on Shutter anymore. But
Yeah.
that makes
Yeah.
sense.
I consider it not being on Shutter anymore to be disruptive.
It is what it is, dude. It
Yeah.
is what it is. It might come back. You know how licensing
Hopefully.
things go, and
Yeah.
you know it's obvious that his show now people are starting to get hip to it. So
Mhm. It's
they're all
definitely.
doing a good job.
I probably watched that episode more than any of the other Last Drive-In episodes, just because it's just so fucking funny. Um,
Yeah,
it's also probably the thing that I watched the most on Shutter because you
yeah.
can't find anything.
I don't really like. Even if there's a movie I want to watch that's on Shutter, I'll at least check and see if Joe Bob. And you know, I gotta watch the Valentine's Day episode. Probably
It,
put that back on Monday. So
it,
that'll be perfect because there ain't nothing on.
it was good. What I like the most about it is he went back to like the last two specials. He kind of did like a whole thing with, like they did the auction last time, and there was like this whole presentation. With this one, he went kind of back to the basics, just him sitting in his chair,
Hmm.
belly aching, which it was great. It was really good.
I'm so glad that guy has a show and it's that accessible.
Yeah,
This
it's
Monster
amazing.
Vision was a big deal growing up.
Yeah.
But without further ado, let's get back to Exorcist 3.
Hmm.
Exorcist 3 is obviously a sequel to one of the greatest films ever made, which we're not going to cover. We may have some references, but I don't want to talk about it.
Nothing to say. There's nothing to say.
At this point, I kind of feel like 3 is more interesting. It's not the better movie. It's not more complete. It's just more interesting. There's way
Scarier.
more to talk about.
That,
It's
in my
definitely
opinion,
scary.
in my
It's
opinion,
definitely
it's
scary.
scarier.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely one of the more scary uh, thrillers. If you want to, more than
Yeah.
horror, it's more of a thriller. Uh, but first things first, it stars George C. Scott, who is,
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
yeah, I mean it really does star him, and it really does. It's actually that's close to being one of his last movies, and I think
I think the
it's
very last one he did was his 12 Angry Men remake. But yeah, it's definitely probably one of the last five or
what
six.
about Angus? Remember the movie he did Angus with the fat kid?
No.
I think that was his last movie. That was the
Was it? I
movie
didn't.
where all great actors, I feel, at some point when you get tired of them, they're too old to play cops. They're not threatening anymore. They just play someone's grandfather or father. In this case, he played a grandfather. And it was actually a pretty heartfelt role for
Yeah.
him, which is
I
kind of doesn't happen with George C. Scott.
yeah. I'm
He's
looking
all
at.
here. He's not in here. He's all right here.
Yeah, he's intense. I'm looking at the poster. I've never heard of this movie.
You never. Maybe we'll cover that one of the days.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I
His,
think the
his,
biggest thing that came out of that movie was Green Day did a song for the soundtrack.
oh, okay. Yeah, his last movie was a TV movie called Inherit the Wind, which he was nominated for a SAG award for. So there you go. 1999. That was the year he died.
He definitely inherited some wind. Anyway, I think Exorcist 3 should have been called Inherit the Wind. There's a lot of wind in the movie. There's a
It's
lot of doors being opened by wind
it's very
throughout the
windy.
movie.
It's
It's
a
very
very
windy.
windy movie. The movie literally opens with wind fucking shit up.
Hmm.
So,
Even
so
Jesus, it even woke Jesus up.
yeah, he's like, what the fuck?
Jesus is like, bro, that fucking wind, close the door up in this shit. I'm naked.
Shut the damn door.
Close the fucking door. I'm naked up here on this cross. Anyways,
The water's a bad idea. I'm not going to drink anymore for the rest of the
I
episode.
have to. Dude, my throat is fucked. Wearing, now that the CDC and Fauci's fucking face says you have to wear two masks, or it's good to wear two masks. I was like, you know what? I'm this far into it anyways. May as well try it. It
Yeah.
honestly isn't bad until like Saturday morning when you're like, 40 hours. Well, minus lunch hour. That's probably the only time I don't have a mask on. But I'm usually in the basement, so I'm not breathing in good air.
Yeah.
So pretty much, I don't know. I would say 25 to 30 hours a week talking with two masks on. It's a motherfuck, but
I bet.
regardless, George C. Scott, uh,
Yes.
he in his later years, definitely in the 80s and 90s, probably post rehab or whatever, just started doing horror,
Yeah.
and which
I,
I would think would include uh, the Christmas Carol he was in, because that was a really creepy version of the Christmas Carol, and in
One of the
most
creepier versions, yeah.
yeah, most of it was just his performance and the fact that he looks really scared. Like,
Yeah.
the dude knows how to look scared. Like, he just knows how to look scared. It's like I said, he's all here,
Yeah.
and that's important for actors. And he delivers lines the way he does. I mean, Exorcist 3 is easily his most flighty movie. If he may have had a bender before the movie or something.
Oh, he definitely had one for the reshoots.
Right. That's probably because he was fucking pissed off that they had to reshoot most of it.
Yeah,
I think they all. I
35%.
know Brad Dorff was, but
Brad Dorff has come out and just straight out said that he thinks the movie's a piece of shit.
Yeah,
But I think that's in reference to the theatrical cut.
Yeah.
Which
And his experience with it's different.
I understand the sentiment, but yeah, I don't know if I agree with him. I mean, obviously we're sitting here talking about it, so
Well, if I ever talk to him, and obviously I hope of all the people that get to do cons, I really hope they would get Brad Dorff to do a fucking con, because I mean, he could get the Lord of the Rings people, he could get Exorcist 3 people, One Flew Over
HBO.
the Cuckoo's Nest, yeah, and most importantly, Wise Blood, which I want to see some Wise Blood fans there, other than me and probably you. Which we're covering that movie next episode, by the way.
Yes,
I'm just going to get that out there now. We're covering Wise Blood next. It's going to be way more interesting than this.
Everyone's like, "What the fuck is Wise Blood?"
It's on HBO Max. It's
watch it.
It's redonkulous. It's a really strange movie, and it has hints of everything.
Ask me what it's about, I'd be like, I don't know.
Rednecks. It's about
pretty much
a little desolate town, where people aren't necessarily burning crosses. Definitely shades of racism, but it has nothing to. The movie has nothing to do with racism. It's more about religion and insanity and post-war, I believe. Whatever. But back to Exorcist. Next time.
Yeah.
So George C. Scott, Changeling was another amazing horror film he did, which
incredible.
Right, and you know what? The characters from Changeling, at least the first half of Changeling to Exorcist 3, are pretty similar in that, he's kind of carrying around the torment of, he's carrying basically. So let's break down Exorcist 3, what it's about.
Yeah.
For the most part, it's about the cop who was in the first Exorcist, who was originally played by Lee J. Cobb. And was picked up by Lee J. Cobb's friend, George C. Scott, 30-some, what is it, 20 years later? Close to 15?
I think it was like 15 or 16. It wasn't that much later. Exorcist is what, 75, 76, something like that? Mm-hmm. I think this was like 89 or 90.
Yeah. So basically what it's about is the priest, or excuse me, the cop from the first one, Kinderman, who's obviously a little riddled and a little haunted by the death of his priest friend, Karras, Father Karras from the original. There's this weird thing, and we never talked about this, but there's this weird thing about this movie where all of a sudden there's a backstory with Karis that was not in the original. Like they got like photo shoots together. Like that shit
Yeah.
didn't happen in the original. Like they
I was
talk,
gonna say, yeah, that like they hyped up this. They insinuate that there was this great friendship between Father Karras and
yeah, it was very
Detective
bromantic.
Kinderman.
They had, like I said, they had fucking photo shoots together, and I
That
don't remember
shit
that.
is not in Exorcist One. It's just not.
Yeah, yeah, they talked a couple times. I think the comedic timing, because of Blatty's writing, was obviously, it was there in the original and it's there in this one. So you could imagine,
I think
uh,
it's definitely more prevalent in Exorcist Three. His roots to his comedic background.
right,
Not it's definitely in Exorcist One, but it's a lot more subtle, and I think
right,
that's because a lot of Blatty's kind of like eccentricities got filtered through William Friedkin,
right.
whereas he also directed Exorcist Three, so he was just free to lose his mind.
Yeah, yeah. It was pretty unfiltered. It was pretty, and I think really what it did too, and he did really well, was he made up for the fact that you didn't get much of a backstory with Kinderman and Karras.
No, it's a
And
huge leap of faith going into it. You're just like, oh, this happened.
right, right. And then there's this thing they do, and they do it brilliantly, where they pretty much use Ed Flanders as a kind of a conduit Karras. So
Yeah.
all the conversations that he had with Karras, Kinderman and Karras in the original, with both of them being smart asses, the timing, they kind of catch up with that through what was the Father Morning?
Father
Father
Dyer.
Father Dyer. Oh yeah, Father Morning. We're not even
Fa-
going to cover that.
yeah.
But anyways, back to the plot. And this is just the long short of it, or the short long, or whatever. Uh, the plot's basically just this cop who's kind of riddled with the passing of his friend. It's pretty obvious. They say Kevin a lot.
Kevin.
Kevin.
Father
And
Dyer's middle name
which
was Kevin.
Kevin. But and even in the beginning, and I think it may have been in the director's cut, or maybe it was in the regular cut, where he's just sitting there reading, and he looks at that picture, like
Yeah.
the glamour shot of him and Karras, which
Damien.
is like, when the fuck did this happen? Like, because you motherfuckers knew each other for like a week, you talked twice, and then the dude jumped down a flight of stairs. Where were there time for glamour shots?
One thing we didn't. We always talk about the whole Kevin thing, which
Yeah,
we're not going to explain. Just watch the movie.
yeah.
But we don't ever talk about that little shot at the beginning when he's looking at Father Karras' picture.
And he
Damien.
says,
Damien.
Damien. I I mean, so many shit that he says in the movie. Like, it's probably the more quotable. It's the
Oh
Exorcist
yeah.
movie that you can quote in public.
Kind of.
Like, I mean, I quote it all the time when it comes to files. It's not in the file. It's not.
It's not padding the job.
I'm padding the job. And so basically, yeah, and then he's a cop, and all these. He's also was a detective on a serial killer case that happened previous, like 15 years previous. So there's like a timeline there, and there's some room to add some hocus pocus shit, which they do, and they don't really explain. They do, but it's like, just let it go over your head. Don't worry about it. It don't
Yeah.
Shit don't have to make sense.
It's superfluous.
Yeah. So he was tracking a serial killer, then all of a sudden these bizarre ritualistic murders start happening, which to me is the horror of the movie, is just the full-on description of what this cat, the Gemini killer, who's played by Brad Dourif, would commit, and they would just talk about them like over dinner.
The Gemini killer's dead. They caught him and executed him. So
He's not dead, he's alive.
no, I'm not. I am alive.
Yeah, that shit fucking scary. So basically the spirit of the Gemini killer jumps into the body of Father Karras. Karras arrives from the grave, blah blah blah. I don't know if he commits. Oh no, that's right. They find him and then they just commit him to a mental hospital.
Yeah,
Like
they do.
when
They
they
have
check the dental
OVAs.
records, like you could tell this is so 70s and 80s because this would never happen now. Because they would
Oh
just
yeah,
check the dental records of
there's
Karras and say, "Oh yeah, yeah, I thought that motherfucker died." I'm like, why is
people
he walking
walking around,
around?
people walking around the hospital smoking and shit. So
Yeah, that's
what
very.
century was this made in?
Do you think Georgetown hospitals still do that?
Probably it's Georgetown.
Yeah, fuck it. If you're not getting shot, you're smoking cigarettes or going to college. They got a good b-ball team. But anyways,
Getting possessed.
or getting possessed.
That's the
Yeah.
other thing they're known for is possession.
We do have to visit Georgetown eventually.
Yeah. Do you know the house isn't there anymore?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
that's why
steps are.
steps are. That's why you don't see the house in Exorcist 3, just the steps, because the house ain't fucking there,
Mm-hmm.
which is a bummer. But whatever.
Now, I always forget this, but the sound stage that they used to film Conan's show on at Warner Brothers lot, the sound stage that they filmed that was where they used the sound stage for The Exorcist.
Oh, the refrigerated set.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
shit.
So even though all that burned down, the whole like I guess lot or it basically looks like a giant airport hangar.
Yeah,
Basically,
that's
it's still
scary.
intact. When I was walking in the first time, like on the it's exactly like you would picture it. It's still like Pee-wee's Big Adventure when he's driving through the lots. But on the buildings, they have like what movies were filmed there and where the soundstage was used for, and they bring up it said The Exorcist, and I was like, oh, holy shit! And that's kind of funny because that's where Conan shot his show, but
That explains everything.
that explains everything. So, but anyways, back to the plot, and
Yeah,
this will lead to you know, uh, and then like I said, the conduit character for Karras, now that Karras is dead, for Kinderman is Father Dyer, played
yeah,
by Ed Flanders, who really is fucking hysterical.
he's great. He was great in it. Yeah. Uh,
Like their timing, even them laughing at one another, the carp scene.
yeah. My favorite thing about the carp scene. I can't tell if the George C. Scott could have ad libbed that, or Blatty could have wrote it. Either is
Mm-hmm.
totally possible because it sounds like George C. Scott ad libbing and it sounds like Blatty writing comedy. But
Yeah,
my favorite part about that scene is it's clearly obvious that Ed Flanders is breaking character and just losing it. So
yeah,
if you go back and watch Exorcist 3 and they get to the carp in the bathtub scene, don't look at George C. Scott. Look at Ed Flanders as he
yeah,
shakes with laughter.
yeah. I think it was probably this like more involved blatty like dialogue, and George C. Scott was just like, fuck it, I'm gonna say it like this. And they
Not
just
in the file.
it's not. And check this out. Okay, so there's a nurse character who he yells at a lot. And I think other than uh, other than the lead characters like Dorf, Ed Flanders, George C. Scott, there's another actor in the movie. I don't know her name,
Is
but
it the one
she's
he
the one who
yells
plays.
at?
Yeah, the
Mrs.
older nurse. Yeah,
Her name is Nancy Fish. She also most people would know her as Mrs. Peenman in The Mask, and she
and I actually know her from the opening of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, where Robert Downey Jr. is running from the cops, and he pretty much bum rushes a actor's audition, and she's the dialogue coach
yeah,
for the casting, and she didn't age at all. I mean,
she looks
she looks
exactly the same. Yeah,
exactly the fucking same.
she
Like,
plays pretty much specializes in that sort of like smarmy old lady that you can't stand role. That's pretty
yeah,
much her
yeah,
forte.
she's excellent at it. She has a
Yeah,
great straight face. And speaking of old ladies, there's a lot of old ladies in this movie, and you'll totally get this, and we may have talked about it, but every old lady in Exorcist 3, which is a lot of old ladies, and most of them really creepy, are pretty much like if you took every creepy old lady character from the original Ghostbusters cartoon and threw them in a movie,
Yeah.
it's every fucking character. And
Yeah.
that's really geeky. But if you know what I'm talking about,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
especially the one with the phone, or says it's a phone,
She's
and
on
he
the
says, "I'm the
ceiling.
phone repairman." Oh, that's a radio.
Yeah,
That lady.
she was actually in she was one of the old ladies that didn't like Penelope Ann Miller in Big Top Pee-wee.
I don't think anybody liked Penelope.
I don't
I,
think Penelope I don't think
I don't
Penelope Ann
think
Miller likes
she
Penelope
likes
Ann Miller.
Penelope, and that's probably the issue. Because I know when I went to see John Leguizamo do a lecture when he was filming was it Kill Shot or whatever that series he was that was here. He did a quick book lecture or a quick lecture and a book signing at the Waterfront,
Mm-hmm.
and his book, I think it was Pimps, Players, and Hoes: My Stories of Hollywood, is basically just throwing everybody under the bus. And she was
Yeah.
definitely one of those from Carlito's Way who didn't get along with anybody. You know.
That was a reoccurring motif. I heard she was kind of hard to get along with in general.
Mm-hmm. So she is the real villain for Kindergarten Cop.
Yeah, she's the
She's
real
the real
villain in
villain.
everything. She's the real villain in The Shadow too.
It's a good one. We
Yeah.
should cover it. We should cover that movie. But then again, I don't want to rewatch that movie.
Yeah, we should. Well, we can't do The Shadow without
Joe
Joe.
Meany.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Joe Meany has to be on for The Shadow.
yeah. We
Uh,
saw that in the theater, and then we went to Hills, and then they had Shadow action figures, which were really cool.
they
Like
were cool.
you would squeeze the Shadow legs, and his arms would come up with guns.
Yep, I had that one.
Yep, it's a good fucking figure. There should have been Exorcist 3 action figures.
I'm on it. There probably is.
Like a wind up old lady that you could like stick on a wall and it could go across the ceiling. Hit up Mecca, they'll make it.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm. Or they should just have like one of those like dolls that they had at Spencer's that you just press the button on the back and it would just regurgitate lines from the movie. You could have one for Gemini Killer. He's like, "No, I'm not. I'm alive." Or my personal favorite is his pain will never end. It's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
good one.
So okay, so let's move to the most important thing. Nate brought up Brad Dorff. Um,
Brad fucking Dorf.
he is arguably one of the greatest character actors out there
Yeah.
ever. I mean,
Yeah.
um, I like that he didn't do a lot, but what he did was always quality. You know, and I believe his daughter's an actress too.
She was in Tenet.
That's right.
Yeah. She's a really good actress. She's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, he is. Back to whatchamacallit, Brad Dorff. His performance easily, and I think Joe Bob mentioned this, and I would second it because I always thought the same thing. Is him as the Gemini Killer is easily the scariest on-screen serial killer
I
ever.
I agree. Exorcist 3 is like I didn't watch it for a really long time, and
Hmm.
I think a lot of people don't watch it for like a really long time, and I think it's because it sort of gets lumped in with Exorcist 2. People just like will remember Exorcist 2 and how
Right,
fucking terrible it was, so
right.
they just assume 3 is the same. Meanwhile, it's amazing. So
Hmm.
I passed up that movie for many years, and when I finally did watch it, which honestly, the first time I watched Exorcist 3 was probably like 12 years ago.
Hmm.
Um, I remember I'm thinking like, wow, this is actually pretty good.
Hmm.
And then you get to the Brad Dorff shit, and you're like, holy fucking shit! Like,
Yeah,
why
yeah,
aren't people talking about this movie?
yeah. And I mean, it's one of those roles where he's wearing a straight jacket the whole movie, so there's no movement.
His ankles are literally chained to the
His
ground.
ankles are chained. He doesn't. He briefly stands up once, doesn't he?
He stands up once or twice. His eyes are always tearing. I don't know why. That's
Hmm.
really really unsettling. It's just he doesn't even have to say anything, just him standing there. Or there's that one scene where he sings in like a boy's soprano voice.
Yeah, yeah, they do that. Yeah. The vocal track, I mean, I know they did little effects with his voice. They definitely pitch shift it from time to time. It would go real low, and then you
Yeah.
could tell it was his voice. And for a while, I just thought he was throwing his voice until I watched more Brad Dourif performances, and I'm like, well, he's not going that high, and he's not going that low.
Right.
But they definitely pitch shifted his voice, but the performance sold it. You would kind
Oh
of have
yeah.
to do that, you know. But I mean, there's and he breaks the fourth wall,
Yeah.
which Anthony Hopkins does, and like to me, like Anthony Hopkins' Lecter is the snake from the Jungle Book. It pretty
Yeah.
looks at you dead on. It has a shit-eating grin. It talks. You know, I know he said he had it reptilian. You know,
Yeah.
uh, and you know, I mean, the Lecter character, for better or for worse, through the sequels, just came a little campy. Which the Gemini Killer never became campy. It was
No.
always pretty fierce. I mean, Jeffrey Dahmer loved the Gemini Killer.
Yeah, it was Jeffrey Dahmer's favorite movies, Return of the Jedi and this, Exorcist 3.
Mhm. Yeah, that guy was a fucking
Well,
asshole.
that does it, folks.
That does it. We spent all this time talking just to say, you know what? This is one of Jeffrey Dahmer's movies.
And we also should talk about Jason Miller, because him
Yeah,
and Brad Dourif kind of coincide in this
yeah.
film.
It's a duality, and I thought it was a smarter way to do back and forth than just because you really get the connection with the first movie, even though they don't want you to. You really get that connection with that character, and you know, to see Jason so older, um, and not to mention too, and they mentioned this on the Shutter behind the scenes. He's pretty much at the in the end stages of dying from alcoholism.
Yeah, we should point out that with with Brad Dourif and Jason Miller essentially playing the same role, and it sort of jumps between the two. And that was not how it was intended. Originally, it was just Jason Miller,
Right.
but he just could not perform. He had a lifelong struggle with alcoholism,
Wet
uh,
brain.
wet brain. He couldn't remember his lines.
Never fucking heard that term. Maybe, but you know,
Blatty. It was Blatty said it.
yeah, who's got wet brain? I think Dorf said it too. But
Probably.
you know, knowing like the characters that Dorf played, he probably knew people with wet brain.
Probably. Do you think wet brain? We got to Google that. Is that a real thing, or did Blatty make that up? What do you think?
I don't know. It's some
Doesn't
Catholic
matter.
thing. It's a fucking drunk.
Catholic horror. But
Catholic horror. Yeah, that's so Joe Bob. Catholic horror.
the one thing I wanted to point out, though, about Jason Miller in the role as Patient X / Damien Karras / Gemini Killer / who the fuck else ever, is that, yeah, he, essentially Blatty had to fire him out of mercy just because he couldn't perform. He couldn't remember his lines. But what you're looking at, the sort of chopped up performance that's sort of littered in.
It's very good.
It's very good. So it's like
It's
when
very
he was
real
on,
too. Yeah.
when he was on, he was on.
Well, I think what it was, I mean, you know, he was struggling with alcoholism. The guy was practically dying, and like that, you know.
The crazy thing is he lived like 12 more years after Exorcist 3 too.
That's true. We kept drinking. He probably preserved himself with booze. He was in, I think that the only other movie I remember him from, especially from the 90s, was he was in Rudy, you know?
He did a lot of theater the last couple years of his life. Probably why he did. But actually here in Pennsylvania, I think.
Yeah, I think it's from here. And that's fucking, and I said it to you the other day, his fucking father-in-law is Jackie Gleason. So you're
Yeah,
gonna be drinking because that's a lot to deal with.
yeah, oh yeah.
That's a
I
lot to deal with.
Yeah, yeah. Also, another little factoid for those of you who don't know, his son is Jason Patrick,
Yep, yep. And
who's
then there
great.
he has another son that was in The River's Edge too.
But
The one
wasn't he
that
in,
actually looks like him.
wasn't
The
he also in Gummo? Wasn't he the little kid, one of the kids in Gummo?
I don't know. He may have been too young at that point. I
We'll
mean, he
look it
may have
up.
been older at that point. He was
River's
definitely
Edge, Gummo, it's like the same thing.
right, right. Yeah. It practically is. I mean, River's
Yeah,
Edge is pretty much the Sacramento, like Northern California version of Gummo, pretty
yeah,
much. But we should cover the River's Edge one day too.
yeah.
Uh,
We'll do that. That's another, guys. If you haven't seen River's Edge,
it's a
change
cool
that.
heavy metal
Watch.
movie, you know.
Yeah, it's great. I think I read somewhere that someone's doing a Blu-ray for it, but anyway.
But yeah, back to Exorcist 3. You know, I mean, we're talking about a movie that the studio got a hold of and wanted to make it an Exorcist movie. The director didn't want to make it an Exorcist movie. They spent a lot of money in reshooting, bringing in a character that the older I get and the more I watch it, because when I first started watching it as a teen, it was just like, okay, you know, this is just a sequel to The Exorcist. But then once you learn that they did all this stuff after the fact and that the studios wanted an exorcism in the movie to sell the movie, it's so obvious that they pretty much just added this character,
Right.
Father
Yeah.
Morning. So,
To give it a little background, The Exorcist is obviously based on the book The Exorcist, written by William Peter Blatty. He adapted his own work for film. Exorcist 3 is also based on a book by Blatty called Legion,
mhm,
which like The Exorcist, it takes place in Georgetown. The characters in Legion are characters in The Exorcist. It
mhm,
references events in The Exorcist. It is
mhm.
not an Exorcist sequel, though.
Yeah.
So Blatty set out to make an adaptation of Legion.
Mhm.
They Morgan Creek and Warner Brothers didn't want Legion. They wanted Exorcist 3.
Yeah.
So I guess they attempted to I don't know, work something out, but it just kind of got lost in translation. And Blatty, I think, described it as a Mexican standoff. So the
Yeah.
movie kind of got chopped up a little bit.
Yeah. And then you got to figure too, like the trilogy to me, and I never read the novel and I haven't seen the movie in its entirety. Really, the trilogy is The Exorcist, Ninth Configuration, Legion.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really
Oh,
that's the Faith trilogy.
right. Yeah. That ninth configuration is, it's kind of the same thing as Legion. Ninth configuration, it's like it takes place in the same world as Exorcist. It has
Mhm.
characters. The astronaut in The Exorcist, when
Mhm.
Reagan pisses on the carpet and says, "You're going to die up there," he's the main
Mhm.
character in the ninth
It's so weird
configuration.
that wasn't like I really didn't catch that until the not the theatrical release of The Exorcist, but the version you've never seen is when they really pressed on that because the original like version of The Exorcist that was always on like AMC, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was always on. The Exorcist is always on around Easter. You could always find a presentation somewhere of The Exorcist. I'm sure Freeform will have one.
as it should be.
Yeah,
Hail Satan.
Hell Satan. But oh, here's another reference. I know I was talking about Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. And there's another Exorcist reference in that movie. And I don't know if it's solely because of Warner Brothers, but there's a scene, not only is that the nurse from Exorcist 3 in it, but there's a scene where right after Michelle Monaghan accidentally cuts Robert Downey Jr.'s finger off, slamming the door on it. Now, this is a comedy, mind you. He's all on pills. Well, he's RDJ. Of course, this was
Yeah.
a clean RDJ. but he's all pilled up, and he goes to this fucking Christmas party in this LA Christmas party, and it's all fucking bizarre. There's a Pazuzu statue as soon as he walks in.
It's
There's a
awesome.
giant Pazuzu statue in the middle of this art gallery Los Angeles Christmas party, and I never caught that to the other day.
I wonder why. Not that I'm complaining.
Mhm.
There should be Pazuzu statues in every movie, but like
I think Shane Black.
probably that's like in Exorcist 3. Actually, there's that Joker statue.
Exactly.
Why?
Well, and here's the weird thing about that. Like, I used to rent the VHS of that at West Coast. That was really, this wasn't the most accessible Exorcist movie. There
No.
wasn't really a great DVD of it. There wasn't like, it was kind of shunned. Like, and my
Yeah.
brother and I used to watch it all the time. It was fucking great. Like, really, it's a great thriller. Like, to me, it sets the tone for Seven and a lot of those other things
Oh
where you
yeah.
get to talk to the serial killer. Silence
100%.
of the Lambs, obviously. But it we always caught that, but it was always so dim on the VHS that you couldn't totally make out what it is. And I always said, well, either someone desecrated a statue like they did in the original Exorcist with Mary with the Madonna tits and the Bowie dick. We'll just call it a Bowie dick. I don't know why,
There's a
but
lot of
definitely had Madonna tits.
there's a lot of religious statue desecrations and Exorcist, and it's a
And
motif that
and and
carries
this
on
one,
in the three.
it clearly wasn't even a desecration. It clearly was just the Joker. And I think it was just a little nudge to Warner Brothers. I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
Why not? I think, well, this movie was filmed in '89, wasn't it?
what, Exorcist 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they
And
started filming in '89. And then
yeah,
they
well,
reshot. I knew it took some time. And it came out, what, 91?
something like that. Yeah. The all the reshoots kind of pushed it back. But anyway, the point I was making was, what was the biggest movie in 1989?
Ghostbusters 2. No, I'm joking. Batman.
Second biggest movie of 1980. Yeah,
Yeah.
Batman. So they were like, hey, it's Warner Brothers. Let's just put this statue in there for no reason because
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, it was one of those things that they really pressed on once it got the Blu-ray. Like they wanted,
yeah,
they specifically, Shout Factory did such an amazing job with the presentation of that because they
yeah,
know that movie has a niche audience. It's not necessarily a horror film audience
mm,
because, if you're into like Saw, Hostel, you're probably not going to be in The Exorcist 3.
no,
If you're into Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Friday the 13th, you're probably not going to be an Exorcist 3. If you're a huge fan of The Exorcist, you probably are not even going to be a fan of The Exorcist 3. To me, I think like the niche audience is just people who are into the movie for the drama and for the performances. You get to see all
yeah.
these,
I
with the
to lump it,
exceptions of Brad Dourif, you basically get to see a bunch of old alcoholics acting.
yeah. Well, I think to I would lump it into like you're looking at like more recent movies. I would kind of like lump it on to like Hereditary and Midsommar. It's like a movie like that. It's also
Mhm.
very similar. It's a great companion piece to The Changeling. Uh,
Very great companion piece. Yeah.
same as Star too. So it's like the perfect companion piece.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's such a subtle, weird movie that
Hmm.
if you're like you said, a slasher guy or like
Hmm.
anything like that, and you go into Exorcist 3 and don't like it, I'm not
Yeah.
surprised or offended.
Yeah. And obviously, I mean, we're leaving out the whole, we're at the point where we're talking about this movie where we're talking about the whole performance, but when you get to the actual horror and jump scares, I mean, it does have one of the greatest jump scares in cinema
Greatest
history.
jump scare of all time. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, they recreated that in the new Black Christmas movie.
the new one that came out like
The
2 years
new
ago.
one. Yeah, which
Really,
I don't think that one was bad. I just thought I thought it was they were too restrained.
it just
You
wasn't
know,
Black Christmas. It's like a totally different plot.
it was, The plot was good. Some of the performances were good. Dare I
The-
say, it wasn't as vicious as they were to like. It's supposed to be a more feminist approach to the movie, and as vicious as they were to giving these horrible backstories of sexual assault to the girl
yeah,
lead of the movie, the boys didn't get killed good enough. It was
yeah.
very, very PG
I don't
13. I
I don't
think
know.
they could have went really far with it. It
The
wasn't
original
bad. It
the
wasn't bad.
original the original Black Christmas is just so good, and in itself, for a movie that came out in 1974, it's super feminist.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I don't know. To me, it's like I don't know. It's just too different from. I'm a huge Black Christmas fan. I don't want to get too
right,
far into it, but if you want my opinion, skip the 2019 remake, watch the 2007 remake of Black Christmas. That one's better.
right, right.
Or skip both and just watch the original. Watch the Joe Bob episode.
Yeah, you could do that.
Yeah,
But yeah, the jump scare with
yeah.
you
It's
know,
wasn't that jump scare used in like a music video or something? I thought you told me that.
I don't know.
I'm sure it has. I don't know.
I
I'll
mean,
look
I
that
know
up.
it's all over the place on YouTube, and I think most of the people who saw that probably got the movie. When I was in junior high, this is actually a good story, and I didn't really remember this to the other night. When I was in junior high, when I was real hip to that movie, um, a friend of mine, all these girls were having a sleepover around Halloween, and everybody loves horror films. Like the fact that horror films are like you know kind of pinned as like a boy club or whatever by critics. Fucking everybody loves horror films. So
100%.
they were having this big sleepover and they were renting all these movies and they wanted some suggestions from me, which, I gave them some. I was like, well, Friday the 13th Seven's fun. And they were like, yeah, we got that. And I recommended The Exorcist 3. I don't know why. I was just like, well, it's a really fucking creepy movie, but it's definitely not a sleepover movie. And they came back to me like the following Monday, and they were like, "That movie sucked. Like, why the fuck did you make us watch that? That shit sucked." And I'm like,
That's
"Well," but
I'm used
that
to it.
scene scared the shit out of them, though.
Oh, it's scariest fucking scene in anything. It's very alarming scene. I meant to point this out to you the other because I watched Exorcist 3s on Thursday. The
Mm-hmm.
scene at the end when the Gemini killer has possessed Nurse X, who's played by Vivica Lindfors, and she goes
Mm-hmm.
into Kinderman's house. That shot of when the uh, that medical tool, those jaws,
Mm-hmm.
are around Kinderman's daughter's neck, and they pull her head out really quick.
Uh-huh.
It's like I think it was a reverse shot, but it's really creepy.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's
it's
really odd. There's so much shit they do in that movie that's odd. It might be one of the weirdest horror films. Like,
yeah,
do you remember? There's a scene where George C. Scott is like having like a late night snack and reading case files, and his daughter comes in with her hair completely down, very Reagan-esque. Her whole fucking silhouette, the way she moved, her nightgown.
you
Uh,
almost think she's sleepwalking, but
you
she's not.
almost think she's sleepwalking, and it's definitely reminiscent of Reagan. Like
Yeah,
it was a clear,
yeah, it's a really weird,
it's
and it's
weird. It's a weird fucking movie. It really
it's
is.
not in like an art house way. It doesn't try to be weird in a pretentious way. It's just naturally fucking strange.
Yeah.
And I think, and it
It's
really lends itself to the creepiness of it.
yeah. It's. I mean, it's easy. We picked an easy movie to talk about because we could still go on and on about it.
Yeah,
It's
we,
it's one of those movies that, like I said, it has a niche audience that's not necessarily a horror film audience, which is kind of us because we kind of like everything, but the
yeah,
things we geek out the most are like Fincher, fucking anything involved drama, good acting, good writing, Fincher, the comedy, like Shane Black comedy type shit. Um, that's obviously what we're more
yeah,
into, but I think I think that's why this movie's always going to be a bigger talking point than the original Exorcist.
yeah. I think I find it just more interesting to talk about. I feel like it's more watchable too. I watched Exorcist over, Halloween last year,
Hmm.
and I liked it, but like, I got like three-quarters of the way through it, and I was like, all right,
Yeah.
I don't think I need to see any more. I've seen this movie, but like, yeah, you can always just kind of go back to The Exorcist 3 and find new things in it. There's always like these weird little eccentricities in it because it's just sort of like these moments, these
Hmm.
moments lumped together into this weird kind of like horror thriller pastiche. It's just such an odd fucking movie.
Yeah. And that we haven't even covered the weirdest part, which is the cameos.
Oh yeah, there's I don't even know why they're there. And they're not like it's not like whoever, like some stupid like cameo that only like a horror nerd would reference. Like Larry King is in it.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of get why Larry King would be in it because they'd be like, "Oh, The Exorcist, yeah, it's a great movie. Yeah, yeah, I'd love to be in it." But the weird shit is like the dream sequence, and that I don't know if that just comes from Blatty's fucking comedy background, because I don't
Patrick
even think we
Ewing is in
mentioned
it.
that William Peter Blatty wrote one of the best comedies, or one of the most celebrated comedies. It's definitely not the best, but one of the most celebrated comedies of all time, Shot in the Dark, which was
Yeah,
the first Pink Panther movie with Peter Sellers.
yeah,
And, obviously, not to talk more about The Exorcist, but when you write that movie and that book, you're not really going to get work doing comedy. But
yeah. He was
his can be. Go
he
ahead.
he, he pitched Exorcist first before he wrote the book as a screenplay, and he took
Hmm.
it to a bunch of studios, and they didn't want to do it because he was that comedy guy. They were
Right.
like, you're really great with your Blake Edwards stuff. Just focus on that. So then he wrote The Exorcist as a book. It was a huge success. Subsequently became a movie because of the book success. And then when he tried to do other stuff after The Exorcist, which he won an Oscar for, he adapted his own book. He got
Right.
a best adapted screenplay Oscar. He literally got the other side of the coin. They were like, "Why do you want to do this drama or this comedy? You're a horror guy." Meanwhile, no, he started off doing Pink Panther.
Yeah. It
And
goes
it's
to show
just,
you they really don't know anything.
yeah, it's that's the cool thing about Blatty is that he really was able to do anything and do it well.
Hmm.
And I feel like he would have done even more if they had just let him.
Right. Well, here's the thing too about that. There's the dream sequence. Um, so let's just give her a cameo rundown. I don't even. You can't really consider Samuel L. Jackson's brief moment as a cameo
No,
because
he
he
was like
really. I mean,
he was a
outside of Do the Right Thing, he really wasn't in much. I think
he
he
was a
was in,
bit actor at the time. Really, he would
right.
kind of do anything. I mean, he did.
Right.
Wasn't his first speaking role that like one scene in True Romance or something like that, or no, that
I
was
don't know. I
after.
think Do the Right Thing was 88, 89. I think.
Yeah,
So that would have been before that.
it wasn't even his voice in Exorcist 3. He was clearly dubbed, and he's only in
Yeah,
it for
yeah,
like
that's another
two
thing
seconds.
that throws you off. It's like, bro, you got Samuel L. Jackson in the movie and you're doing a horrible. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, honestly, in retrospect, like, yeah, it makes it a little more weird.
yeah. There's also the one that really stands out that everyone notices is Fabio.
Fabio,
One of the more
Patrick Ewing,
Patrick Ewing. One of the
Patrick
more
Ewing. I mean, that
yeah
was when he was in the like prime of his career with the Knicks. Like, it's motherfucking
yeah
Patrick Ewing, dude.
the one that a lot of people tend not to notice, and I think he's I can't really remember off the top of my head. I think he's in the dinner scene with Larry King, but C. Everett Koop, who
That's
was
right.
he was the Surgeon General at the time. He was Reagan's Surgeon General, and he's in The
Mhm.
Exorcist 3.
Well, come to think of it, that would make sense because that little bar and restaurant that they're at, that's a very like Georgetown. That's like where politicians would hang out after hours. So
Yeah,
maybe and they have all the characters of the journalists and everything all over the wall. So maybe that makes sense. But the dream sequence, I think it was just Blatty just going full. I really want to know how they pitched Patrick Ewing. Fabio, it doesn't fucking matter. That dude, they
Yeah,
just paid him. They just paid him to
honest,
show up.
honestly, it's probably an easier pitch than you think. It's probably like, hey, you want to be in Exorcist 3? Okay. Who
Yeah.
doesn't want to be in The Exorcist?
Yeah. Hey, you get to be an angel in an Exorcist movie.
Yeah,
Sure. Sure.
works for me.
Yeah. I almost met Fabio. My mom met Fabio. I almost did. But she did.
That's cool.
He did. He put out a cologne, which we used to use it to like snake the tub. It was a really bad cologne, and I'm like a cologne connoisseur. It
Hmm.
was horrible. It was horrendous. But yeah,
Not
he was doing a
surprised.
promo thing, and he was at. It might have been when Kaufman's was downtown, and I think they went after work, and they met Fabio. Hey, why not?
Good for them.
I like Fabio. Fuck it. I mean, he's one of those really white northern Italian guys. It's like we're both Italian, but you're like it's a good way to like. He's a good plot point to describe Italy. Like there's Al Pacino and then there's Fabio.
Yeah, yeah.
That just goes to show you how weird historically Italy really is.
That's an
But
interesting dichotomy, Fabio and Pacino.
they're from the same country, you know.
It
But
is what it is.
what else do we got? That pretty much sums up everything. Other than that,
Yeah,
people should just check out the movie. Is it
yeah.
streaming through any services right now, or
Well, obviously it's not on Last Drive-In anymore. Shutter.
it's on Shudder?
Uh, Shutter. Put
Yeah,
it back on Shutter. But no,
Shudder.
it's just the standalone movie without the Last Drive-In commentary is on Amazon Prime right now for free.
Okay,
It has the Shout Factory artwork for the extended cut,
which is
but
excellent artwork, by the way.
but but it's not the extended cut. It's the theatrical cut. I think the only way to see the extended cut is
Just to buy
through the.
the Blu-ray.
Yeah,
Now,
I don't even think you can rent it on Prime.
the extended cut to me is just like something. It's like a case study. It's kind of like you waited all these years for it to happen, and there was some stuff that was cut out that was like worth it, like the scene at the graveyard where they're
Yeah.
excavating the body. Like that should have been
Oh yeah,
that
absolutely.
worked.
I don't think the ending is better though.
Yeah.
The shoehorned exorcism sequence that was in the theatrical cut is really dumb. But I mean, here's the thing. I mean, the ending to the book is also completely different from the theatrical cut and the director's cut. The truth of the matter is, out of the three different endings from across the book and both versions of the movie, none of them are particularly good. Um, but if I had to pick one, with all the belly aching about the theatrical cut, I think that the theatrical cut's ending is probably the best.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
just because I don't know, at least it's sappy, and the exorcism doesn't make any sense, but at least there's I don't know, there's some sort of
Right.
payoff.
Well, I think the real payoff is you get to see George C. Scott's character come full circle.
Yeah,
You get to
and
see him humbled in the face of whatever. Like that's like to me like I'm surprised at least that wasn't in kind of the original. No, I never read the novel, but the whole famous line he does, which he does a monologue towards the exorcism scene, which has probably been used. I don't know how many metal bands I've seen where they've done some intro to their opening set where that was put above like feedback guitars or
mhm.
it was used so much in metal. I think Seven Dust used to use it. It was weird. I went to see Seven Dust open for Creed at the arena just to see Seven
Jesus.
Dust at the arena because I was kind of cool with those guys at that time. They came through here a lot and they were really nice. But that was like their intro was just like their guitars feeding back and that monologue
Awesome.
George C. Scott delivers, probably thinking about booze, um,
Yeah.
getting drunk.
Yeah, the book's ending is basically You find out that the Gemini, and it's kind of hinted at in the movie, the Gemini killer was essentially committing these crimes to shame his father, and he
Hmm.
finds that his father dies, so
Hmm.
he summons Kinderman to his cell, and then he basically gives himself a heart attack in front of Kinderman and dies, and that's the end. So everyone that's like the theatrical cut's lame. It's like, have you read the book?
To me, I thought, okay, so we were kind of planning this out earlier, and this will be kind of fun, and we may cut off on this hour. If that happens, we'll just jump right back in, and then I'll edit both of the movies, both of the streams together when when it's time. But the way I would have ended, way I would have done it was you can have you could take the exorcism out of it, but still have that special effects thing where they're shit's coming up from the ground, crucified Jason Miller. We didn't cover what they did to the black kid at the beginning of the movie, the crime they talked about, which was to
Nor
me
should
should
we.
have never been shown. But the fact that they showed it was kind of like they briefly showed it. But I would have done that. Get rid of the exorcism priest. But my thing was what they could have did with it is an opening ending, and even though it sounds kind of campy, I think even though he shoot spoiler alert, he just shoots Jason Miller at the end of the movie. Jason Miller was coming out of the possession as himself and says, "Shoot now, kill me now," ba ba ba. Then he gets shot. To me, it's like that's such a convenient way to end it. I thought that if they
Yeah,
really wanted to make what made the movie unique was the Gemini killer and the fact that he was jumping back and forth between bodies to commit serial murders. Um, have like another shot of like an old lady, like a steady pan shot going down the halls of a hospital, and it'd be like another. You would see like another lady like crawling across the ceiling or something like in that like. Yeah, he's still gonna keep going doing his thing.
right. Yeah. The
I
other
thought
thing they
that would
could,
have been cool. I mean, it's very campy. It's very unblatty. It's very like okay.
yeah.
But
What
I
the
think
other
it
thing
would have been cool, at least respectfully to the Gemini killer.
the other thing that they could have done to just to get, because I like the ending,
Hmm.
the exorcism ending. I just don't like Father Mourning because he doesn't make any sense. There's no
Yeah.
introduction to his character. He's just there. What they could have
Hmm.
done is they could have kept the doctor character played by Scott Wilson, instead of
Yeah.
having him overdose for no
Instead of him
reason.
overdose, have him still alive, and
He's the one that goes in and like gets stuck to the ceiling,
mhm.
and then just the rest of the ending is basically just the theatrical cut. You just substitute Father Mourning for the Scott Wilson character.
To Scott Wilson. See, that's just yet another performance
It's so
where
fucking weird.
there's a doctor who's like a constant chain smoker.
In a
He has
hospital.
like he has all these like occult really cool posters and like naked chicks like posters in his doctor's
In his
office.
doctor's office. I like the scene where Kinderman goes in and he's like looking around.
Mhm.
like
Yeah,
like
yeah, what the fuck? And then, like, remember the one time I caught this? I always said there's a subliminal message. You look at the one bookshelf, and there's this giant book, and on its binding, it just says drugs.
yeah.
Yeah, we
It's
should do
pretty
like a
much
plot. There's so much. There's this movie just keeps giving. Like it just really.
yeah.
If you're like I think if you want to like shed the like Joe Bob's take on it was great. Obviously, ours is way more out there than his because we don't really care about making sense. But his
No.
job as a host is to try to make things make sense.
Yeah.
But we're looking for the Easter eggs so we could, smoke pot, drink coffee, and laugh at a movie that we've seen a million times. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what this whole series is going to be about. So I think we should just wrap it up here because we've
Yeah,
covered
yeah.
everything, especially things that haven't been covered.
I think what we want you guys to take away from this is get off the internet and go watch Exorcist 3.
Yeah, just do something fun. You know, if you don't even want to watch The Exorcist 3, the next movie we're going to do is John Huston's movie. What was it, in the late 70s that movie came out, or early 80s?
Yeah, late '70s or early '80s. Um, it
I
was based
actually
on.
don't watch it. I don't want to tell people to watch that movie unless they've seen it or want to watch it again.
I don't know. It's kind of an obscure movie, and
Hmm.
I mean to at least be able to follow anything we're saying on the next episode, maybe. So how
Hmm.
about this? Mario says don't watch it. Dave says watch it. It's on HBO
I'm not.
Max. Go watch it.
I'm not saying don't watch it. You know, because like it is interesting. You just have to watch knowing that this whole thing is going to be absurd. I will say, as a caveat to all of this, that that movie takes place in a post, what was it, World War II?
Yeah, right after World War II, I believe.
Okay, so a post World War II southern town. Um, that's pretty much a depressed town, which a lot of places in America are going to look like in a year. Um,
Yeah.
Sadly, oh, we just got deep. Fuck. Shit.
What?
Whatever. Anyways, you know, so it'll touch up on the post-war depression. You know, it's more about evangelical kind of behavior than anything. And
Yeah.
I say evangelical behavior, not evangelists, because there are evangelists in it, but it's more about their behavior than actual fucking being an evangelist. But yeah, so there's shades of everything in it. There's religion, some politics, a lot of obscure, definitely some racism when it comes to dialogue. Um, but that, you know, sadly is the South. Um,
It's just one of those
yeah.
movies where you read the you read the like the synopsis like on on HBO Max or like the back of the DVD
Mhm.
or whatever, and it sounds normal.
But it
And,
isn't.
yeah, and then you watch it and you're like, what the fuck is this?
Hmm.
It's one of the more strange. It might be weirder than Exorcist 3. I always thought that John Huston was kind of like a fairly straightforward director.
Hmm.
And then I watched Wise Blood. I'm like, actually, no, John Huston's a fucking weirdo.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, you
so
know, the novel itself, what's her name? Flannery O'Connell was
Flannery
the
O'Connor,
author.
yeah.
I think she wrote it when she was like 19 or something. So
It's
it
a,
was probably
yeah.
her view of the world at that time. And, you know, you could tell that she obviously takes a pretty liberal standpoint on how she presents the bad characters and the shady characters in the movie. So you can tell it's coming from a decent place, but it's a really fucking weird movie, and I can
Really well
talk
acted,
about it.
though. If you guys are any of you guys are into the author John Kennedy Toole, if you've ever read like Confederacy of Dunces or
Hmm.
the Neon Bible, it's kind of very similar to that.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, we're gonna do that next time.
Yeah. So within a week or so,
Yeah,
we'll do a
we'll put it
Wise
together.
Blood episode, which that's also a movie that I kind of feel like, why isn't it in a list of stoner movies? Like if El Topo and Holy Mountain, which are very similar, because
Yeah.
those are more of like Eastern philosophy Western movies,
Well,
especially El Topo. Uh,
I think it's one of those movies like that just hasn't sort of been rediscovered yet. Like Exorcist 3 was sort of rediscovered because of
mhm,
Shout Factory.
yeah.
Uh, there is a Criterion collection
Mhm,
um, uh, printing of Wise Blood, but it's only DVD, and I think it's out of print. And Criterion's kind of slowly diving back into their older out of print films and
mhm,
re-releasing them in Blu-ray format. They just did it with Silence of the Lambs and a
mhm,
few others. And I'm hoping that they do that with Wise Blood because I think it might find an
mhm.
audience again. Otherwise, it's on HBO Max, and I think it's on
Right.
the Criterion channel as well.
How I found out about that movie was the Amoeba Records Hollywood, their show, What's in My Bag. The Melvins did a really good episode of that,
Did
which
they
is not
pick? Did they pick
shocking.
Wise Blood to put in their bag?
Yeah, Buzz Melvin or Buzz Osborne or whatever picked Wise Blood. And I've seen the poster, and being a fan of Brad Dourif, I've known about it. Um, so just their description of it, I was like, well, I have to check this out. So I think I rented it, and then I talked to you about it, and you're like, yeah, I don't think I've seen that movie. And then we all kind of watched it at the same time, and then it popped up on HBO Max, and it's a hoot. The cast, you got Harry Dean Stanton, and most people would recognize the one character who's probably like the useful idiot or the useless idiot because he's not even useful is the same actor who played Billy the Kid in Bill and Ted Excellent Adventure.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of Bill and Ted, to go back to Exorcist 3 real quick, the character Dr. Bruno in
Mm-hmm.
Exorcist 3, the guy who shows them how to use that
Yeah,
the thing, the
yeah.
bone cutter or whatever it was, who's like, like, this one's a little stiff. He played Beethoven in Bill and Ted.
Oh my God, you're fucking right. When
Yeah.
I was younger, I thought that was Blatty because they looked similar. Like just the scene where he's wearing glasses and they're coming into the room. I used to think that was Blatty, and then when you
I,
watch the movie further, it's like, yeah, that's clearly not Blatty. But he kind of looks like I don't know.
it's
You
He's
were
one of
talking
those
about I
actors.
watched this long before IMDb and the internet.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
His name is
What's up, Andre? I
what's
think
up?
Andre joined. What's up, Andre?
Is he on here? He was on here at some point. Yeah, but yeah,
Yeah,
that actor's name is Clifford David. He's one of those dudes you've sort of seen in like everything, but don't know who he is.
yeah.
But that's who he is.
Well, what's ended on that? That I mean, that's good information.
Clifford David. Go look him
We've
up.
pretty much isolated everybody but Nate at this point. So
Nate made a comment earlier about Joe Bob versus Norm Macdonald.
they're similar.
Jesus Christ, that would be terrifying. Yeah,
Yeah.
Joe Bob. I don't know. They wouldn't
Is it a
fight.
fight or are we talking? Because I can't picture either of them fighting.
Look at these nerds. Fuck you.
Look at these nerds, Andre. What the fuck
Yeah,
are we supposed to do, Andre?
yeah. We're in the middle of a pandemic. It's this or
Damn pemic. I'm going to
damn
start
pandemic.
calling it 2021's a damn pemic. Last year was the pandemic. This is a damn pemic. They're kind of the same looking. Yeah, they're white. Okay, that's the end of the episode, folks. We hope everybody. I'm watching the greatest movie of our generation. What you watching, Andre?
What are you watching?
Probably Wild Wild West. Knowing Andre,
I will fucking leave.
I don't give a fuck. I miss you, Andre. I just want you to know that. Andre, when I was at his house, he has the best bathroom setup. There's a wall right next to his toilet where you could just lean on and piss. And we watched the UFC over there, and your brother and I were pretty stoned. And, I drink a ton of water, so I had to go like multiple times. But there's just like little wall right next to his toilet. What do you say?
Rampage.
Rampage. Shit, I'll watch that shit. So there's this wall next to Andre's toilet that literally you could just angle yourself, lean your shoulder on it, and just lean into it and just urinate. It's fucking phenomenal. So,
Awesome.
Andre, I'm glad you're here. I miss you. Nate, thanks for tuning in. Dave, thanks
But
for being the co-host. And
anytime.
we'll see you next time for Wise Blood.
Wise
Wise
blood,
Blood's
people.
definitely a movie that I would watch
I
Andre. I
was
would
just
totally
saying.
watch a production of Wise Blood with Andre.
But you guys should watch Wise Blood. Even I won't tell everyone to watch it, but Nate and Andre watch Wise Blood before we do the episode.
Andre would get the hystericalness of it, and the I mean,
I think he'd be like, I don't like this, but I see why you two do.
I don't like it. It's just a thing. It's just a thing that happened. Like, I like Zodiac, and I like the UFC, and I like the title fight tonight, and I like pizza. Wise Blood's just this thing that's out there that I don't think anybody likes that movie.
It's kind of gross, but it's necessary gross.
Well, it's the fucking South post World War II. Like, of course it's gonna be gross. It's
Yeah.
fucking a little depressed town. Kind of reminds me of towns around here, except it's not as diverse, I guess. But it definitely kind of feels like Homestead or fucking McKees Rocks, or my dad coached high school, so high school football. We've been to every shit fucking neighborhood that Pennsylvania has to offer, and I have seen some shit. So, and I grew up in Braddock, North Braddock. Like, everybody says, oh, these are depressed towns, whatever. No, 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 no. There's way more fucking weird shit out there, like Connellsville.
Oh yeah, yeah.
This shit's fucking weird. So what's this? I've recently found the Beauty of Pitch Meetings series on YouTube. I don't even know what that is, but I'll check it
I don't know
out.
what that is. I'll look it up later though.
Let's just say, I'm going to rephrase Andre's comment and just say, I've recently found the beauty of Pitch Perfect movies. Those are decent movies if you mute the parts where they're singing. So we're going to leave it at that. Again, and this is our time. Thank you for tuning in. We will be back within a week or so.
Wise Blood people.
Wise Blood. All right. Peace out, everybody.
Later, guys.
Later.